Hello everyone, my name is Scott Pletcher and I'm a student here at Purdue. After a 29-year career in corporate IT and a variety of national and global retail apparel companies, I decided to go back to school, this time to pursue my doctorate with Purdue University. And I'm focusing on the intersection of machine learning, ethics, privacy, and data security. In this session, I'm going to share some of my research around an area which I think holds great potential for retailers, but also presents some risks as well: in-store individualized video analytics. I'll first explain a little about video analytics and some interesting retail uses, but I also want to share some risks which might not be evident. I'll cover some of the current legislation on the books around video analytics and see what might be coming down the road. Finally, I want to provide some recommendations and potential strategic plays for retailers based on my research. In-store surveillance in retail is certainly not new. Back in the olden days, we'd hire a security guard to keep an eye on things, and generally the job we were trying to accomplish was loss prevention. Then, as technology advanced, things like closed-circuit TV systems became more popular, and maybe some retailers invested in these newfangled things called digital video recorders, rather than shuffling around all those VHS tapes. But the value these cameras provided was pretty much the same as the security guard: loss prevention. Now we have amazingly high-resolution digital video cameras. We have high-speed internet, which lets us shuttle that video off-site to other locations. We have limitless computing power we can rent on demand and only pay for what we use. And the real killer app, machine learning. Machine learning methods combined with this bottomless computing power allows us to do things with video data which we could have never imagined just a few years ago. We can extract demographics of shoppers with an amazing level of accuracy, 89% according to some studies. Oh, and if the person happens to be wearing a mask or sunglasses or a scarf, no worries, the accuracy only suffers about 1%. We can determine dwell time. We can see which sugary cereal end cap displays attract the curious eyes of all those 7-year-olds. We can measure traffic in store, conversion rates, determine whether a shopper looks pleased, satisfied, or frustrated. We can identify loyal customers and automatically prompt associates to rush over and greet them by name when they walk through the door. We can do all these things with the right cameras, the right technology, and the right processes. And we can still do loss prevention. But we can do a little different form of loss prevention. We don't necessarily have to wait until the crime is committed. We can do things like profiling. We can detect fraud real time. We can identify and ask persons of interest to leave. By the way, persons of interest are what facial recognition companies use to describe unsavory characters which might have a history of doing bad things. Now, I think all of us are not surprised at all that in many retail stores, especially the national chains, which have solid infrastructure and can support significant technology investment, they readily capture everything about us as they can. And for retailers, we rationalize this by saying we're just trying to improve the customer experience, or we want to know more about the customers so we can better meet their needs. But come on, let's be honest. Deep down, we want those experiences to result in sales and profit. And that's why we're in this business. The challenge, though, at least in the current climate, is knowing where that line is between knowing our customers and knowing too much about our customers. This is Clearview AI. Based in New York, founded in 2017, Clearview AI has gotten a lot of buzz and attention over the past several years, primarily because of their business model. Now, if you've never heard of this company, that's completely understandable, but be assured that they probably know you quite well. Clearview AI, at least according to their website, has built the largest known database of over 30 billion, that's billion with a B, facial images. They do this by programmatically scanning the public internet, a practice that's called scraping. They scrape various online sources like mugshot databases, news media sites, and social media sites to gather faces, names, and as much other information as they can get. They then assemble this data into records that includes all sorts of details, images, and a biometric print of your face. So you can probably see how this pile of publicly harvested data linked together in this way could be very useful. To law enforcement, for example, when they're trying to identify a bank robber from CCTV footage. Now, if you visit Clearview AI's website, they'll talk lots about security and their service to law enforcement and how they make us more safe by helping catch terrorists and bad guys through their facial recognition service. So what if some company has a dossier scraped from my LinkedIn page? I'm certainly not planning to do anything nefarious that would get me in trouble with the law. Well, in 2020, Clearview AI experienced a security breach in which hackers acquired their customer list. Now, in addition to law enforcement, many other companies were on that list as having used Clearview's service, including Best Buy, Macy's, Albertsons, Rite Aid, Kohl's, and Walmart, to name a few. Now this is how this can work. I walk into a physical retail store and my image is snapped up by a high-resolution camera. That video image is transmitted to Clearview AI, who compares my in-store image to their database of 30 billion other faces and finds a match. They then send my information, probably as much as the retailer is willing to pay for, back to the retailer, who then uses that information to push a very timely notification to my mobile phone, or offer me some customized promotion during checkout. Now, Clearview AI isn't the only company with this sort of technology. There are lots of options out there for anyone with a credit card to spin up a video analytics system capable of identifying individuals in near real time. The technology has simply become commoditized and on demand. Well, as soon as this news became public that some of these retailers were on Clearview's customer list, most all of them swiftly released statements denying that they use Clearview anymore. Best Buy and Walmart said that they had just piloted the service and decided not to move forward, and subsequent research seems to indicate this is true. All except for Macy's. It appears they were an active customer at the time of the breach. In fact, according to consumer privacy group Fight for the Future, both Macy's and Albertsons are two of the few retailers who don't outright deny the use of video analytics. Albertsons' current privacy policy says they do use video technology and, as they put it, may or may not be able to associate such information with you using that video data. So what do the laws say? Well, there are currently no federal laws, so the states have been creating their own laws. Illinois' Biometric Privacy Act, signed into law in 2008, is considered one of the earliest such laws to prohibit the collection and use of biometric data without a person's consent. Many other states have similar laws either in place or in progress. Generally speaking, all the laws center around this concept that someone just can't capture your biometric data, and that being defined as anything from fingerprints to facial structure to how you walk. They can't capture that data without the consent of the individual. So in our retail store scenario, all the parts from the video cameras all the way back to the service provider who might be performing that video data interpolation is capturing biometric data. And because I was just some guy walking in off the street to buy a soda and Cheesy Poofs, I was never asked to give consent, and thus I gave no consent. This is a real problem. In Illinois' BIPA law, it allows the individual to file cases against companies who do this sort of thing, and there have been lots of lawsuits filed and lots pending, including some class action lawsuits. Again, as these privacy laws vary from state to state, your mileage might also vary. Texas has a similar law to Illinois, but only the Attorney General can bring claims against companies for violating that law. No private citizen has the ability to bring a claim. Most privacy experts point to Illinois as a sort of good laboratory where this new privacy law stuff is being hashed out around video analytics in particular. So for national retailers, this state-by-state regulation is a real headache, and lots of companies have been pushing for one consistent federal law. Well, as you might guess, this is taking much, much longer than many would like. As of this year, there are around 35 different bills which cover everything from use of facial recognition to allowing the government to give out grants for privacy R&D. Most privacy experts say that H.R. 8152, known as the American Data Privacy Protection Act, is the best chance for any sort of federal version of all these state laws. Its definition of biometric data includes images of the face and body that are then used to derive information. So not just facial recognition, but also other things like sentiment or demographics. It defines the responsibilities of the data collector and the data providers, and in our context, the providers mean the customers. And it also allows the collection of biometric data without consent, so long as it's not used for individual identification. So those anonymous people counters that many retailers have are still perfectly okay. Perhaps most importantly, it preempts state law, which means that, at least as it's written, it would take precedence. So for all those national retailers operating in many states, this sounds great, right? Well, not so fast. The bill includes some exclusions to that preemption clause, such as making sure to state that the bill would not supersede any state contract laws or the state's criminal laws. But quite specifically, it does not preempt state laws solely addressing facial recognition. And it does not supplant Illinois' BIPA law either, a law that probably has the most video analytic privacy cases filed under it right now. So what's a retailer to do? One perfectly sound strategy may be just to do nothing if you're not currently in the business of biometric data collection. Time is only going to bring more clarity, and you're going to let other retailers, maybe some of your competitors, pay the legal fees to get this area hashed out. Because video analytics are a commodity industry now, there's really no major upside to being a first mover. So being a fast follower once things are more clear would be pretty easy, at least from a technology standpoint. Now I know some will say, well, if it's not illegal, why not? I'd refer you to that old ethics acid test. How would you feel if this gets printed on the front page of the Wall Street Journal? Even if you think you're just doing a little pilot project with closely trusted partners, just assume that it'll be made public someday via a hack, a disgruntled employee, or a tenacious internet sleuth or whatever. One facial recognition service, Face First, even says on their website, while there may not be any laws requiring you to do so, we recommend that everyone make sure their customers are aware. Of course, be ready for some customer backlash as well. But as the technology becomes more commonplace, society will adjust. How many of us thought we'd allow eavesdropping speakers into our house 10 years ago? We can also employ some good old-fashioned customer empathy. Retailing is maybe unique in that all the people working at retailers are in fact retail customers themselves. So we have a pretty good sense of what we like and when we feel like we're being taken advantage of or being used. What is that customer value for having their likeness crunched and processed for every last shred of inferred data? And I know this might come as a shock to all those marketers and advertisers. There is not much customer value in receiving more ads. Maybe you go against the grain and publicly promote that you're the most privacy-focused retailer on earth, where customers are totally anonymous, no video analytics, no tracking cookies on our websites. You only take payment in cash or Monero cryptocurrency. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but I can assure you that when all the dust settles and the laws catch up to the technology, there will be a market for privacy, and some people will value that enough to pay a premium. Now, don't get me wrong, data is good. More data is usually better, but before we rush headlong into what we can do with this technology, let's consider what we should do with the technology. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Feel free to reach out with questions and comments, suggestions, or just connect. Thanks a lot.